Recently, I posted a short video for a vegan Krabby Patty where I refuse to build it the way that SpongeBob does because the architecture makes no sense, particularly how he just puts lettuce on the burger patty followed by a piece of unmelted cheese, which just sounds awful to me. But a bunch of folks were quick to point out that the food theorists tested out the Krabby Patty stack order and found it to be the tastiest. So I went ahead and checked out the video, and it's great, but there were a few things that stuck out to me about the burgers that they made. And first, they made them way too tall. This is because they formed really thick patties, which also threw off the bun to meat ratio, and on top of that, some of the toppings were hanging off and cut a bit thick, and lastly, they didn't really seem to toast their buns, which will definitely compromise a burger's structural integrity. Now look, I know this is not something I'm totally innocent of. I make jaw unhinging burgers all the time, so I do get it. And as another caveat, I realize that taste is subjective. This is just my thoughts on it, of course. No hate to the food theory folks at all. Because that being said, I really dug the video and I found it super entertaining and informative, and it actually got me thinking about this stuff, so I decided to make my own video just to find out what I thought was the best way to stack a burger. So I started to wonder things like, are sliced onions better than diced? Are whole leaves of iceberg lettuce better as shreddis? Is a burger sauce better than ketchup, mayo, and mustard on their own? And toppings, they go on top, right? I mean, they're not called bottomings. So to find out, I'm going to make a whole lot of burgers, and we're going to break down each component to figure out what works and what is a big old fail. And now I did have a wildly different experience than the food theorists, mostly because I went about it in a different way. Obviously, since I'm vegan, I'm using all plant-based ingredients, and instead of burgers based off of emojis, I went with some popular fast food burgers. So we're going to do a Burger King Whopper, an In-N-Out Double Double, a Carl's Jr. Famous Star, a Del Cheeseburger like Del Taco, and then a burger in the style of Fatburger, and last but also least, a Krabby Patty in the proper order according to SpongeBob. So let's go over each component and then we'll build some burgers. And for the buns, like I discussed in my barbecue burgers video, size matters. Typically you'll find buns in two sizes, large and small. The smaller the bun, the easier it is to stack things too tall and cause everything to slide out as you squeeze the buns in order to fit this thing in your mouth, which in the world of burgers might be the saddest thing possible. Regardless of what size bun you use, you're going to want to toast it. This will crisp up the interior of the buns so they are more resilient to any moisture or condiments, and thus they won't get soggy and fall apart. There's a lot of ways to toast the buns. You can simply do a dry toast. You can spread butter or even mayo and toast it that way. Do whatever you like, but if you decide to toast your buns before you cook your burger, I suggest letting them rest on a wire rack so they don't steam themselves on a plate and get soggy. Personally, these days, I prefer a dry toast as I find it is the sturdiest, but butter or mayo is great too for added flavor. No matter what, it should sound something like this. And now for the patties, size also matters. The plant-based burgers I usually use come preformed or in a brick like this. For the preformed patties, they are good to go in the smaller buns. For the larger buns, I recommend pressing them down a bit so they match the size of the bun for a proper meat to bun ratio. Normally, I prefer to weigh out my patties to 4 ounces using the brick of meat and then shape them with a large cookie cutter that matches the size of the bun. And this does take longer than forming them in the palm of your hand, but it's more uniform and foolproof too. As for thick patties, I don't really recommend it unless you plan on minimal toppings. Again, you just don't want to build a tower of a burger that's going to require you to unhinge your jaw. These days, I prefer making a double patty burger with 2 thin patties over a single thick patty because you get twice as much browning, which is where the best flavor is, and you can stack another piece of cheese in there, so it's a win-win. I also dig making a smash burger. I've covered that in my vegan Shake Shack video, link in the description for that as well. And now for the onions, I was curious if diced is better than sliced and is red better than white. Obviously, grilled onions are a good move, but for the sake of time and my breath, we're just going to be doing raw onions for these experiments. For the lettuce, my main observation was that most fast food burgers use iceberg. I think because it's crunchy, adds some contrast with all the salty and savory elements, and it can also be used as a buffer to keep the buns from getting soggy. I noticed that some places use whole leaf and some use shredded lettuce or shreddis, so I wanted to see which one I preferred. Tomatoes are controversial in burgers. Some people absolutely cannot stand them. Myself, I'm neutral, but if we're going to use them, I think we definitely need to be mindful of how thick we cut them, and as always, season them with a little salt and pepper. For condiments, the burgers I'm making have a mix of using ketchup, mayo, mustard, and a proprietary burger sauce. Condiments play an important role in the taste and structure of a burger, to be sure. Lots of folks say you should only put fatty condiments like mayo on buns to prevent them from getting soggy, so I did a quick test with toasted buns, one with mayo, one with ketchup and mustard, and then one with a burger sauce. I let them sit for 10 minutes, and then after biting into them and giving them a shaking to test out how floppy they were, I would say that the one with just mayo was the sturdiest, followed by the burger sauce, and then lastly the ketchup and mustard one was definitely flimsier, so there seems to be some truth to that for sure. Now the In-N-Out Double Double and Del Taco Cheeseburger have their own special sauces, but instead I'm just going to make a generic Thousand Island style sauce, so they are somewhat equal, though I do want to make a proper Del Taco sauce soon. If you do want a proper recipe for a Double Double animal style, however, I do have a cookbook coming out soon, and there's a whole section on burger basics that goes even more in depth, so if you think you might want to buy it, please do so now, as pre-orders are crucial for a book success. Link in bio. Thank you for your support. Now for the cheese, I highly suggest using a vegan American slice if you can find them. I know the food theorists use a sharp cheddar, but even before going vegan, I preferred American. It just melts and tastes the best. As I've mentioned many times on this channel, just melt your cheese by adding a few drops of water to the pan and covering. Other than that, it's my strong instinct to put cheese on top of the patty, but we'll see how the Krabby Patty and Fatburger do, since they do things a little differently. For pickles, I usually use these fancy pickles by Grillo's, but recently I've been a fan of these crappy pickles from Kroger/Ralph's. They're just kind of disgusting and nostalgic. I don't really know what's wrong with me, but I love them. Lastly, this might be a cheat code, but if you want to wrap your burger, here's how to do it. Simply get some deli paper, fold it into a triangle like so, and then wrap your burger up, basically just swaddling that burger like a little baby, and now you have some extra insurance against burger slippage. And I usually do this if I'm eating a big burger anyways. It's just a habit at this point. All right, now that we have our groundwork covered, let's get to making some burgers. And it should be noted that I've eaten a lot of these burgers before going vegan, so I know what they taste like. And I'll be stacking them according to the official photos of them on the internet. More or less, I've made a few modifications for science and my taste buds. So first up is the Whopper with cheese, which incidentally is in my new cookbook too, along with a recipe for the Angry Whopper, which was one of the best things I've ever eaten. And now the Whopper starts with a bottom bun, followed by the burger with cheese on top. And then next is some pickles, ketchup, sliced white onions, some tomato, we gotta season that of course, iceberg lettuce, mayo on the top bun, and no, I won't be singing that. And now that is a pretty good looking vegan Whopper if you ask me. A good meat to bread ratio, toppings aren't falling over, so let's give it a bite. And yeah, it's exactly how I remember a Whopper, if not better. With all the toppings on top, I can actually taste every component of the burger separately, but nothing overpowers anything else. Everything is coming through in equal and proportional amounts. It is a solid burger, and I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Next up is the Famous Star by Carl's Jr. or Hardee's, depending on where you live in the United States. And it's basically the inverse of the Whopper. All the toppings are under the burger, so let's see how this goes. So we're going to start with mayo on the bottom bun, some pickles, which I don't think are on the original, but I'm breaking the law and putting them on mine since pickles are mandatory on all my burgers. And then we're going to do some iceberg lettuce, tomato, onions, our cheeseburger patty, and now Carl's has a special sauce that's just ketchup and relish, but I'm just going to use ketchup on top to keep it simple. And then lastly, our crown. And now time to give it the old taste test. And I gotta say, I was a little surprised. This was like the Whopper, but I could taste the meat and cheese a lot more, which you would think it would be the opposite since the veggies are on the bottom, but I don't know. It was like beefier, cheesier Whopper, and it definitely reminded me of the Famous Star. So for me, this was a 5 out of 5, a most excellent burger. All right, next up is the Double Double by In-N-Out, and I know the best way to get this is animal style, but we're going to be doing it by the book on this one. And plus, I was curious about the onion in between the two cheeseburgers. I'm also doing this on smaller buns, and I'm using two 2-ounce patties instead of one 4-ounce patty. So we're going to start with some burger sauce, pickles, tomato, lettuce, one cheeseburger patty, the onion slice, which it could maybe a little bit thinner, admittedly, and then another cheeseburger patty, more sauce on the top bun, and now that is a classic Double Double but vegan. And let's give that a bite. And I mean, yeah, this thing was just bananas good. I will say I thought the burger sauce would stand out more, but it honestly wasn't super superior over the ketchup and the mayo. It was definitely better, but not by as much as I would have guessed. And the double patty action obviously made this a super beefy and cheesy experience, and that onion in between them is a great move as well. The only reason I'm docking a point is because since it's kind of big, the buns do get a bit soggy, which honestly I do remember from the original, and probably a big reason why they wrap the burgers too, which this would benefit from. So overall, a 4 out of 5. Next up is a Fatburger style burger, and this is where things get a little different. We're going to get our bottom bun, and then we're going to add the cheeseburger patty, but we're going to flip it so the cheese is upside down. And then next we're going to do some mustard, which is the only burger in this test with mustard. And then after that, pickles, diced onions instead of sliced, tomato, and then shredded lettuce instead of whole leaf. And I know it looks like a lot, but there's a lot of air in there too, and obviously shredded lettuce is a bit messier, but I do like the added texture of it. Though if I could turn back time, if I could find a way, I would slice the lettuce a little bit thinner. And then next is mayo on the top bun again, and now it's time to eat. And this really shocked me. Unlike the food theory folks, this was a very cheese-forward experience. I love that cheese on the bottom move personally, super meaty and cheesy, and then the mustard just really cuts through, which admittedly I'm biased towards as I do prefer acidic over sweet on my burger. The rest of the toppings are there for some good textural contrast, and honestly, this might have been my favorite burger in the whole bunch. 5 out of 5, maybe 6 out of 5 even. Give this one a try. All right, now we're going to do a Del cheeseburger like Del Taco, which is kind of the opposite order as the Fatburger. We're going to start with some burger sauce, diced onions, pickles, shredded lettuce, some tomato, which also could have been a little thinner as well, and then our cheeseburger patty, and then some more burger sauce and the top bun. Now let's bite into this one, and I gotta say, I was surprised that this had the opposite effect as the famous star. The toppings on the bottom actually muted the beef and cheesiness of the burger. The sauce was great for sure, and everything was super good, but it just wasn't nearly as good as the Fatburger. On top of that, it kind of fell apart, which might have been my fault with the thick tomato, but it also could be because of the loose toppings underneath. Either way, we're gonna give this one a 3 out of 5. All right, last up is the Krabby Patty built in the proper order. So we're going to start with a bottom bun, Krabby Patty, lettuce, unmelted cheese, red onions for a change, tomato, ketchup, mustard, pickles, and top bun in that order. And we're going to give that a bite, and I gotta say, after all that, I was right. This was just an awful burger experience. Super dry. I think the bottom bun could have really used some vegan mayo or something. The unmelted cheese was super unappetizing, and yes, I know vegan cheese is not as good raw as dairy cheese. I get it, but still, I feel like melted cheese on a burger is just a perfect fit. It's like peanut butter and jelly, if you ask me. And like the food theorist, my Krabby Patty fell apart as well. It was just a mess and definitely the biggest fail of the bunch, which shouldn't be surprising since it's a cartoon burger. So 1 out of 5. Not a fan of this one. Sorry, food theorists. But yeah, the Fatburger and Famous Star were my favorite combinations, which is confusing since one has the toppings on top and the other has the toppings on the bottom. But maybe because they're chopped up smaller, it made a difference. I'm not sure, to be honest. But regardless, I would love to know how you all like your burgers. And if you plan on trying any of these, let me know in the comments. Until then, I'll see you all next time.